tax the rich and the greedy, not the needy. These are the signs that we see. Raise the rate on those who earn at the very top end of our economy, and that will solve our problem. Now, what I'm showing you here is the top federal marginal income tax rate historically considered. It goes back to 1954 when the highest rate was 90%. It comes forward not quite to 2012. I think we get to 2011, not much change there, where the highest marginal rate is about 35%. Now, when you look at that chart, and if I were to ask, now what do you think federal revenues look like across this same period? What do you think federal revenues look like? Does it look like this? High rates, high revenues, tax the rich, it's going to get us out of this hole. Or does it look different? What's the picture? What is the statistical relationship between the highest marginal rates and the revenues that come into the till? Because remember, our challenge right now is to get revenues, not to get tax rates, but revenues. And so that's the question. Well, here's what that number looks like. This is federal revenues as a percentage of GDP from 1954 through 2011, and it's pretty much a flat line. So the flat line says, who are you kidding? It doesn't matter what you set as tax rates. Well, I ask you, well, what in the world is going on? How is it that you can have tax rate as high as 90% and you don't get any more revenue as a share of GDP? That's when you have tax rates of 35%. Please, somebody tell me what's going on. Why is it that the gears do not mesh? Anybody have an explanation? You got one.
People change their behavior to pay a certain amount.
Incentives matter. And so you decide to postpone those capital gains. Say, hey, I'm going to wait this thing out. Maybe I can outweight the tax rate, and I won't sell those appreciated assets. And so all of a sudden, capital gains, returns go down. Say, well, instead of paying myself a salary, since I own this corporation, I'll pay myself another way, in shares of stock. And so I will avoid. And since that tax rate at the margin is so high, I think I will hire a couple of other tax attorneys. And so they get real busy, and the accountants get real busy. Unfortunately, the economists don't, because they don't know how to help. But people begin to engage in tax avoidance. Well, I'll just leave that income in another country instead of bringing it home. All kinds of behavior is induced. But the lesson here, across decades, the lesson is, if you think you're going to get more revenue by raising marginal tax rates, please think again. Because the story seems to say, not just in our national experience, but in the experience of other countries, if you want more tax revenue, get the rates down and cover more taxpayers. Try to get more people putting money into the till, because these real smart people that make a lot of money at the tail of that distribution, they can dance and skate and escape that tax rate. And so it's running at about 18%. No matter what we do. And this is part of the discussion that is going on now as we look at this problem.